first time?
Yeah, well, let's get, who wants up the close line?
You own a radio show.
My brother.
Oh, it's your
I
brother.
run it. He's
Oh,
there.
okay.
I'm gonna put my tape recorder on play. So I'm ready.
Okay, what started the whole movement off? That's what wonders me to start. What happened? Henry went in there. He was a farmer. Was he born there?
He was born there in the Ukraine.
You were born there.
I was born in Siberia.
You were born in Siberia. Okay. Now, what started the migration off? How long had that been going until the migration took place?
The early migration started in 1874, 75, 76, those years, you know.
Okay.
They went to Nebraska. Many of them went to Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
Kansas, Oklahoma. But the second one was right after the revolution.
Okay.
And that's when many of them, especially from the Ukraine, that went to Canada.
Oh,
United States wouldn't accept them because from Russia, it's a communist country, see?
okay.
So they went to Canada.
Okay.
And that was in the early 20s.
Okay.
Like the First World War started in
17.
14. 14,
It ended in
15, 16. 3 years. Then in 1970 was the revolution. That's when Lenin overthrew the government, you see. So 17, 18, 19, and 20, that's when the revolution ended.
Okay.
That's when Lenin took over the whole country.
The whole country.
The whole country. The Tsar had an army also, which was the White Army. See,
Okay.
White armies. They were fighting the Red Army. The Red Army were the Bolsheviks. See,
Okay.
And but the army, the White Army, was weaker than the Red Army was.
Okay.
So they retreated. They went from the Ukraine, from Leningrad, you know, which is St. Petersburg now, Moscow, always further east, you know. I remember I don't remember the First World War, but I remember the revolution.
Okay.
When the White Army came through our village, they stayed night, soldiers stayed night at our place. They took what they needed and went further east. And then the Red Army advanced, you know. They were after the White Army.
Right.
But the White Army, finally, when they reached the eastern part of Russia, close to China, the city of Chita, there was a railroad that Russia had a 99-year lease going through China clear to Vladivostok, which is the far eastern port of Russia. That's the only port that doesn't freeze. It's close to Japan, you know that area, okay. And they took a train over there to Harbin, China. Harbin, China is an international city, you know. When we were there in 1929, there were Americans, Germans, French people, you know, and so on, from all over the world, yeah. And so anyway, when the Red Army came through our village, they stayed night, naturally. They slept on the floor, you know. We had a big house. Our front room was about the size of this room here. They slept on the floor, and they took whatever we had there, you know, and livestock, like horses. See, we didn't have no...
You had nothing left when they were gone.
They left us 2 horses on 250 acres. Left us with 2 horses, yeah. Okay. It was rough. Naturally, Lenin like I say, he overthrew the government, and the land all belonged to the state. You couldn't claim any land anymore, like this is like that. We farmed it. We
Right.
farmed it. We had to pay taxes, not with money, but with grain, you know. And sometimes with meat, like we had to butcher livestock, you know, and deliver that too.
Right.
And but in 1926, shipload of Fordson tractors came in, yes, to our area, to Siberia, and it was required 7 farmers to 1 tractor. See, that was the beginning of the collectivization, you know,
Okay.
collective farming.
Okay.
See, that's
Okay.
what.
When the Tsar was in power, did he own all the land too?
No, oh no.
Okay, okay,
No,
that's,
no, we-
okay,
All right, could I go back a little?
yeah,
How did our people come to Russia? When Catherine the Great, you heard of Catherine the Great?
well,
No?
now that's, my
You probably
history is
have.
too
Have you
old.
heard of her, Catherine the Great? Okay. When she was a ruler, you know, she was not Russian.
Oh,
She was not Austrian,
German?
Hungarian?
German descent, yeah.
Hungarian?
But she married one of the Russians, you know.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't it Peter the Great? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
She married Peter the Great, yeah. But, yes.
They were both assassinated, both killed. Like,
Yes.
So it's, yeah.
All right. She invited these people from Prussia. She was from Prussia, Catherine the Great, from Prussia, yeah. She invited people from Prussia, from Holland, from Germany,
Mhm.
you know, to come to the Ukraine.
Right,
And they homesteaded. She
right,
gave the land, and she gave a lot of privileges. For instance, they could have their own school.
mhm,
They wouldn't have to learn Russian.
okay,
They didn't have to pay taxes.
For 100 years?
They didn't have to serve in an army. So a lot of privileges she gave them.
right. Now, were they were religious people that came primarily
Yes,
under the Mennonite or under the,
under
well,
Mennonite.
right,
I think not all of them,
not all of them,
but
but
quite a few.
quite a few of them.
And they settled around the Dnieper River,
Okay,
very popular river in the Ukraine, you know.
okay,
Kiev, you heard of Kiev?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where the river, you know, goes south.
okay.
Okay.
You say your people came, was that from Germany or where'd you come from?
I don't know exactly where they came. It could have been, have you heard of Friesland?
Yeah. I was in
Friesland,
Germany.
that's someplace in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Friesland. So anyway, as far as I know, my parents, my grandparents, they were all born in Russia. See, this was in 1789
Okay,
when this happened, that migration, yeah. And, but our people raised big families, not like they do now, 2 or 3.
right.
Like you, man.
Right. And land was getting short in the Ukraine, you know. My father became a teacher, but that wasn't his cup of tea. He wanted to farm. Well, there was no way that he could rent or buy land there in the Ukraine.
Okay.
In the early 1900s, they sent a delegation to Siberia to look for some land. And they found 2 places in the Omsk area. That's where my parents settled in 1911. They bought 250 acres. That they had to buy. Then south of Omsk, I would say about 500 miles southeast of us, which is Barnaul and Slavgorod in that area. That's where my wife's parents settled, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of others did, yes. And yes, there they homesteaded.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where they homesteaded. Well, coming back to these tractors, you know, that came in. Okay, so my father, he bought a tractor with 6 other signatures. See? Which was actually against the law. But he did that. He wanted one by himself. And we farmed with it. We did commercial work with it. One of my brothers went to Omsk to a school to learn about this tractor, because they all came in different crates, you know, one tractor. All had to be assembled. And if something should happen, break down, he would have to know what to do with it. See? All right. And then brother younger than him, 2 years younger, those two became the tractor drivers. My dad had a trailer built, not with rubber wheels, steel wheels, yeah. And so they went out on Monday morning, they went out to do commercial work for the Russian peasants. The natural pasture, you know, plow land, you know. And that's what our land was that my dad bought.
Okay.
Never had seen a plowshare.
Right.
And he bought a lot of equipment. He bought a threshing machine, he bought an English motor, American equipment like binders. We had a McCormick Deering. The last one that we bought was a John Deere Deering, yeah. And everything on credit. He built a nice big house, summer kitchen, stable, granary, machine shop, everything on credit. In 3 years, he was debt-free. That's how productive that land was. Yeah. In 3 years it was. Well, anyway, we also went out and threshed for other people. We could pull now the threshing machine with that tractor, and we moved from one place to another. I remember that year in 1926. They ended up with threshing on Christmas Eve. There was snow already, but they threshed until then, yes. Well, that winter, an official came over that my father knew real well, and he said, Tavarish Friesen. Tavarish, that means comrade. See, that was now communist country. He said, he found out that you are the sole owner of that tractor. He said, you better sell it. They're going to come and confiscate that. So he sold it to another village, to the 6 owners. Then my father was ready to leave Russia. He could see the handwriting on the wall, what was going to happen. Collective farming, and so on. That, the winter of 1926-27, that's, Julie, when your grandpa came to our place, to Siberia from the South Russia, from the Ukraine, and lived with us for 1 year. And he went, yes, and my father went twice to Moscow to get permission to leave Russia to Canada. United States, we even didn't think of United States because they wouldn't accept anybody from Russia. See? Every time, the 2 times when he went to Moscow to see this official, he gave him $500 rubles under the table, you know. Okay. The second time, yeah, after the first time he said, well, you come back within such and such a time. Maybe I'll have an answer for you. And he did. He came over there. First thing what he did, gave him 500 rubles again. And then the official said, the doors are closed. We're not letting anybody out. That angered my father. He got up. He was shorter than I am. You know, as the saying goes, dynamite comes in small packages. He got up leaned over that table and he said, "We're going to get there anyhow."
Ooh.
And the official grinned at, you know. He said, "How?" My father said, "That's my business. That's my business." Your grandfather, Julie, had written a letter to my dad from the eastern part of Russia, where the Amur River is, that's a boundary between Russia and China, okay, that there is a possibility to escape into China and then maybe go to Canada, you know, from China. So when this happened in Moscow the second time, he came home, he says, "Now we have to get ready and leave." Because he was numbered twice about that tractor, you know, and now he says, "We're going to get there anyhow."
I can't believe you said that.
Yeah, I can't believe it either, but my father had a lot of nerves. More than I. Yeah. So then the women got ready to sew mattresses for each one in our family, a mattress about this wide, rib, you know, that you could roll up, a blanket and a pillow. I think we had a sheet in there, yeah, and that's it. And that's the way we traveled east. Now, Henry was there already, you know. And that took us, about, I would say, 10 days to reach that point, to the Amur River, the far eastern part of Russia. It was in July when we got there, and we had to wait till the river was frozen, so it was safe to cross it with horses and sleds, you know. So we stayed there from July until December. I just told them at the dinner table that a week from today, 70 years ago, that's when Henry went across the Amur River with my two brothers and a guide. And that guide came back, and then 2 weeks later, we as a family went. Now, my dad told my brothers and Henry, as soon as you get to Harbin, China, look up Dr. Isaac. Dr. Isaac came from our area. He practiced in Siberia, but later he went to China and practiced there, in the city of Harbin. Yes. Look up Dr. Isaac and go with him to the Canadian consulate and see what the possibility would be to immigrate into Canada. They did. The consulate said, "We have no quota for China. You are people without a country," which we were. "We cannot accept you." That was a blow. Now what? Now what? There was an opportunity to settle down in Korea. My dad had a friend there that lived there in Korea. And then he thought also, well, maybe go to Australia, because Australia was a commonwealth of Britain, of England, you know. Okay. But then he thought, well, what's lost? I'll go to the American consulate. And he did. Presented him the situation, and this consulate said, "Mr. Friesen, write an article, the reason you left Russia." And he did, in the Russian language, 8 pages. Brought it to the consulate. He translated it into English, sent it to Washington, D.C. Hoover was president at that time.
Well, I'm glad
Hoover was president.
this elevates me a little bit.
Yes, it does. That's why I asked him whether you were related to Hoover. Yes. Now, Hoover was familiar with the Mennonites in California, Bakersfield. Have you heard of Bakersfield?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. About 20 miles southeast of Bakersfield, or southwest of Bakersfield, is a Mennonite community, Shafter and Wasco. And he had several hundred acres of land there, President Hoover. Now, MCC heard about us being stranded there. Not only our family, about 200 people, 200 plus, whatever, a little bit over 200 people, that came across the Ammo River. But I'll have to go back a little bit. How we crossed, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway, yes, MCC heard about that we were stranded there. So P.C. Hebert, which was the first chairman of MCC, see, MCC was born in 1920, and the first mission work that they did was in the Ukraine,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then finally also all the way to Siberia. Yeah. So he had a special meeting with Hoover about us being stranded there. Well, President Hoover, while Hebert was there, telephoned the Secretary of Labor, which was Davis at that time. You probably don't know that yet. Mr. Davis from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yes. And Davis was running for governorship in Pennsylvania. So he told him about this group in China being stranded. And he said, if it will come to a vote, you better vote for these people. So many Mennonites in Pennsylvania. Little politics yet. Yes. And it did. They had, yes, through special legislation, they issued us special quota for all of us that were stranded in Harbin, China, to come into the United States within 1 year. Now this was the beginning of the Depression.
Yeah.
And
29.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1929.
Yeah.
Yes, crossing that Ammo River. We were the only family that crossed in the daytime. All the rest of them did at night.
And it was frozen over. This was in winter now.
Pardon me?
It was in winter and it was frozen
Wasn't
over.
it? Yes, the 17th day of December when we crossed, that family. I'll never forget that. My dad had the place picked out where to cross. There was a little, about as wide as, maybe as wide as this house, this room here, I mean, is clear, no brush, where we could go down the river bank. We had passed that a little bit, and he figured in the day, why in the daytime? This was about a mile away from the Border Patrol lookout tower. And he wanted to do this at noontime, lunchtime. They would be eating. Well, okay. And there was a Mr. Clausen that we traded something. We accumulated a little bit of furniture, tables, some chairs, and so on, in the city of Blagovicius, which is a border city on the Ammo River. And he brought us some feed for the horses. We had 4 horses with horse sleds, you know. My uncle was involved in this too, and his wife and his son. And my oldest sister was married. She had 2 children. The youngest one was about a year old. And so he knew where we wanted to cross. He stayed about, a good quarter to a half a mile ahead of us with a wagon. Why with a wagon in the wintertime? Because he could load all this on a sled, you know. So it was with a wagon. And like I say, we had just passed this place where we were going to turn off. And we stopped. And my little nephew, that was 1 year old, he started to cry. My dad said, give that kid the bottle. So we wanted to have it as quiet as possible. And she fumbled around in that sheepskin blanket, finally found it, gave it to him, quietened down. He says, now let's go. And so my brother-in-law was the leader. And he turned around, and as he turned around, here comes a border patrol on horseback with a machine gun on his back. My aunt, Mrs. Funk, she just screamed. She says, now we're lost, now we're lost. My dad quieted her down. She says, Susie, be quiet, otherwise we'll be lost. Be quiet. So she quieted down, and my brother-in-law, instead of, he turned back. My father ordered to go slowly. All right, so we went slowly. And he passed us, from here up to the road, up to the driveway. He never looked at us. After he passed a little ways, so we couldn't see as we were moving or not, so we stopped. And he passed Mr. Clausen, and all of a sudden he disappeared in the woods. And my dad had an agreement with Mr. Clausen to give us a sign whether it was safe or not. If he would jump away from the river, that would mean it's dangerous. If he would jump towards the river, that meant go ahead. As far as he could see, air is clean. So he got up. Which way will he jump off the wagon? And he jumped towards the river. And then we looked back at it. We could see anybody. We couldn't see anybody. My dad says, now let's go. So we all turned around, went down on this opening. Went down. I was the last one to go down. Before we hit ice, there was cobblestone. And when we hit that cobblestone, my horse just stopped, wouldn't move. Took the whip, whipped it. All it would do, make one jump, like it stopped. I got out. That wouldn't help. I ordered my sister out. Nothing helped. Finally, my dad noticed that, They were on the ice already. About maybe an eighth of a mile on the ice. And he came running towards me. That book shows it. Yeah? Yeah. The cover.
Yep.
He comes running towards me. And he noticed this leather strap that goes from the collar to these poles. And that bow, that was torn. So he had a pocket knife. He cut it, improvised somehow, tied it together. And all he did is took it by the rein, let it. We got on ice and then we went. Caught up with the others. It was about 30 below zero that day. I perspired for fear that the others would all go and I would be arrested. Yeah. So when we got down on Chinese soil, sun went down. Now we were safe. That is from the communists. We didn't know how the Chinese would accept us, but China was not a communistic country at that time yet, They accepted us. We got to this city of Sakhalin, which is just across from the Russian city, Blagoveshchensk, where we stayed for several months, You could see the people walking on that side, on the Chinese side. And we sold our horses and sleds to the owner of that hotel. Oh, the first night we stayed in an inn in a Chinese village. Yeah, we stayed in that inn. And that was something to experience that day. How did we sleep there? Well, naturally, we all kept our clothes on. They had a stove that they were heating on one side of room, you know. That stove maybe was about, well, longer than this table, where a person could sleep on, stretch out, you know. And that smoke went like this, you see, several times, you know. That's what, it was warm there, and that's where we slept, in that inn. The next day, we went to that city of Sakhalin, to that hotel, and we sold our horses, and we chartered a bus to take us to the city of Tsitsikar, which is on this railroad that Russia had a 99-year lease on there, you know. And there we bought tickets. Of course, that took us 2 days to travel that stretch. And we bought our tickets on a Russian train. See, we escaped from Russia, but here we bought tickets on a Russian train and went to the city of Hardin. And that's when we met your dad, grandfather, yeah, and my 2 brothers, with the news that Canada would not accept us. That was a blow to my dad. Anyway, when we got the permission from this government that we could come in, there were only 4 families that had enough money to pay their way. And that was my family and my uncle and my wife's family and her uncle. The others all had to have help. They were absolutely broke, didn't have nothing. Naturally, a committee was formed of 7 people. My dad was in that, my father-in-law was in that, and then 5 others. And they selected my dad from the Mennonite Brethren Church, and then Isaac, this Dr. Isaac that I was telling you, his brother, he was not married yet, from the First Mennonite Church, to send him over here to the United States in June already of 1929 to get some credit from the churches, you know.
Okay.
So, and that's what they did. Yeah. And we all came here within 1 year. We're farm laborers. That's what we started out with. Finally, we rented land and farmed. Went broke twice on rented land
What area did you go into?
It was in California.
in California.
It was on President Hoover's ground, right?
No, not his ground.
Oh, wasn't his
No,
ground?
no.
Oh, okay.
The first farm we rented was about 20 acres, amber grapes and Santa Rosa plums. My dad and my stepbrother and I, we pruned it all. Thinning we couldn't, that was too much. So the packing house has a crew, always, you know, also for pruning if you need it. And picked it, we shipped it over there, they packed it and sold it. And instead of giving us some money, we owed them money. This was during the Depression. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Then we went on the alfalfa farm, which was about 100 miles north, 210 acres of alfalfa. And that was cash rent, but not that we had to pay cash right away. From each crop, you know, we gave the owner
His share.
his share, $25 an acre. Yeah. It was very expensive irrigation water because it came out of the San Joaquin River and lifted with pumps 300 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the highest price we sold alfalfa was $7 a ton, baled. And so when we were through, we owed the ditch company, the water company, $2,000, which we didn't have. So we walked off of that. Yeah. Yeah. the owner had to pay it if he wanted to farm the next year. And he made money, you know, he made $25 an acre cash. Then he farmed another 20 acres, 10 acres apricots, 2 different variety of apricots, and 10 acres alfalfa. And the second year we did so good on that my father could buy a new car, yeah, and I missed something. We left a brother in China. He was 21 years old when we left him in a hospital. He was crippled from arthritis. This country wouldn't accept him. We could have taken care of him here, but those were the laws, you know. And in 1931, we got a telegram from this Dr. Isaac, sent $900 to ship my brother with help to Germany, to a doctor there. This Dr. Isaac studied in Germany to become a doctor, and he had a friend, Dr. Zimmer, and evidently by corresponding with him, he mentioned about my brother. So that's Dr. Zimmer said, send him to Germany, I'll heal him. Okay, we didn't have a penny to our name, but 2 farmers, established farmers, Mr. Andrew and Mr. Bueller. One loaned us $500, the other one $400. We sent it to China, and my brother was taken to Germany. And they loaned it to us without interest. We didn't have to pay any interest. Whenever we could pay it back, we could be all right. If we couldn't, it would be okay. So in 1933, this Dr. Zimmer, I think it was in February, he died. Brain tumor. And then April, my brother died. That same year, in August, my other brother died. He was 27. The one in Germany was 24. And this one, 27. He was married. He died. The following year, in October, my father died. So it was quite a hard start, fellas. Very hard start for us, but.
What ailed your other brother? He was here when he died.
Yes, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, TB.
Oh, okay. And your dad, what ailed him?
He had a stroke. He had a stroke. My mother died in Siberia when I was 8 years old. She was only 44 when she died. My father was 59 when he died.
Weren't you only 15 when you came? Weren't you only 15 when you came?
Were we what?
15.
Your age, you were.
My age?
Yeah.
A week after we arrived here, I turned 16. So I say I was 16 when I arrived here. Yeah. It was hard, people. It was hard, but we were glad that we were in this country, out of Russia.
Yes.
Because there was no question my father would have, and my brothers, my older brothers, also Henry, your grandfather, would have been all taken to the concentration camp,
Yes.
never to return. Stalin is actually, they say, responsible for 62 million people. Now, that's the war
Yes.
included. But so many of them lost their lives in the concentration camp. Not enough food, not enough clothing, yeah, and a lot of them were shot.
Yes.
Yeah, they were killed. Yes,
Anytime you want something to drink, you tell me.
this is fine.
Okay, there's more there. You want more?
Thank you. Yeah. Anything else you want?
Okay.
Question?
What were some of the names of the other families that came with you?
Would you repeat that? What was it?
What are
My
names
hearing
of-
is very bad.
Names of the other people that came with you.
Names.
Yes.
You mean families?
Family names, Nick.
Oh, there were Clauses, there were Hebert, there were Neufeld, and all Mennonite names, you know. Yeah.
Tell them in the year 2000, you're going to have a reunion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The first reunion we had, and we called it the Harbin reunion because that's China, you know.
Yeah.
We all gathered there. We had in 1955. That's when the older people, like my dad was gone already, you know.
Right.
And my father-in-law. That was 25 years. Then in 1980, which was 50 years, the majority of the people came in 1930. We came in 1929, but the majority came in 1930. So in 1980, we celebrated the 50th reunion. And then from now on, we have it every 5 years. From then on, every 5 years, we get together.
Okay.
And so in we had it 1980, 1985, and instead of 90, we had it in 91 because there were World Conference, Mennonite World Conference, and they didn't want to miss that. They couldn't attend both. So we had it in 91. But 95, at year 2000, we have it again in June. Yeah.
And where is that held at?
That's held about an hour from where we live. Yeah, up in the foothills. Yeah.
How many
Close,
of the original,
close, I mean,
how many of the original people are there left?
very few of the originals. I would say maybe 25, 30 from over 200.
You people that settled out there in California, did you finally make it big again, or make it good?
Were they prosperous after you got established? Did they become very prosperous then? Did they?
Our people?
Yes.
Yes, some did, yes. Of course, I'm a poor man, you know,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm rich in a way.
We are all rich.
Yeah, we are all rich in this country.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely. I have enough to live. I don't have to worry.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I'm rich on family too. I had 5 children, I have 11 grandchildren, and I have 15 great-grandchildren. So I'm rich.
And how did you earn your living then?
I mean,
How did you earn your living? Farming?
yes, yes. First, like I say, we were farm laborers, picking fruit, pruning trees and vines, thinning, and so on. Finally, I became a tractor driver. I became a truck driver. And then in 1943, I had a chance to rent some land, fruit farming, you know, yeah, grapes, plums, peaches, nectarines.
Right.
And I finally bought the place that I was renting. And I farmed for 34 years. I farmed. And then I retired. And then I got my PhD degree after 34 years farming. Post-hole digger. I dug a lot of post holes for the end post of the great rows, you know. And one year I was going to go into the dairy business, so I built a fence, you know. You know these post holes. Yeah. Yes. Then I sold 34 years. It was getting very hard. I don't know whether you heard about this labor contract. I mean, not labor contractor.
Conflict.
Yeah,
You get the Mexican people
yeah.
to work for a company.
Chavez. Have you heard of Chavez?
Yes.
Sure.
You heard of
Yeah.
it? Okay. It was getting very hard. And a small farmer couldn't make it anymore, you know. wasn't big enough to where I could pack my own fruit and ship it, you know, because you have to keep them busy. So I went to the packing.
Yes.
They pruned it for me, they thinned it, and they picked it, packed it, sold it. Had to pay commission actually, you know. There's not much left over.
Yeah.
So for 14 years I did commercial grape picking
Okay,
with men.
okay.
I had 8 tractors, and to each tractor 2 gondolas. You know what gondolas are? It's a wagon, metal wagon, that holds 1 ton of grapes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I had 16 gondolas. For each tractor, about 3 or 4 man pickers. They took always 2 rows. You know, going down the middle, you know, here, pick this row and this row. And I had my own dumper that would dump it into the trucks, the tanks, and haul it to the winery. Yeah. And
And they were primarily used to make wine.
yes, yes. Now, the grapes that I picked, they were Thompson seedless.
Okay.
You can make raisins out of them. You probably get these raisins, yeah, Thompson seedless, okay. And you can go to the winery with them, or you can, for table grapes,
Okay,
you know, to the market.
okay.
Then you have to girdle them. Girdling, well, say this is the cane, yeah? The
Yeah,
vine is right here, and this is a cane. Usually we leave in Thompson's grapevine, we leave 4 to 6 canes.
okay.
And there's 1 wire, and we wrap that around, you know, okay. For table grape, you would go, I never did that because I didn't have enough of it. A knife that has 2 blades connected here though, at the end.
Yeah,
And you go around like this and cut the bark out.
okay.
And then the berry gets bigger, longer. The grapes that you buy, Thompson seedless, that's what's been done with it. Otherwise, the berries are small, you know. They're, about like this, like my name here, you know, around, for raisin drying or for winery. And then also they do thin the bunches. The tip, they pinch off, you know. So it's a lot of work with that, you know, a lot of work involved. And the last 30 years, I would say, they also use a gibberella, a spray. When the bunch, the berries are at a certain stage, they spray this, and that helps the berries to get bigger yet.
Oh,
Gibberella.
Yeah, gibberella.
Oh, well, that's the trade name.
Pardon me?
That's the trade name.
The trade name, yeah. That's
The name of the product scientifically is gibberellum.
Yeah, probably, yeah. So anyway, yeah. So you could go through 3 ways. And then I did also commercial spraying. I had about 25 growers that I sprayed the deciduous fruit. Also walnut trees I sprayed, yeah, with a big blower, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I did that for about 14 years. Yeah. Yeah. A year and 4 months ago to the day today, I lost my wife with cancer. Yeah, she had tumor around the esophagus.
and was she nearly your age then?
Yeah, she was 6 months younger.
6 months younger.
Yeah, 6 months. She was 83 and 4 months old when she died.
Did she come over too?
Yes, my wife came over.
Yes, because you talked about your father-in-law,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have been your father-in-law then.
No.
No, right.
She came here, we met right in
Yes.
Greeley where we live.
Yes.
I was 16. She was 15 when we met.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I lost 2 children. The oldest 2 are girls, and that was Nick Jr. And 15 years ago, he was 45, he had cancer, died of cancer. Big tumor in his liver, as big as large as a grapefruit. Tumor behind his heart,